Hey folks, I wanted to give you a run through of how to calculate handrail baluster spacing. So here's a set of stairs with the handrail on it, and we are going to figure out the spacing of the balusters in between. Now, if you could see, the way that we're measuring the space between the newel post is actually just horizontally. So what is the horizontal space between newel post and newel post? Because the actual spacing between the balusters is also measured horizontally. So at the end of the video, what we're going to do is we're going to figure out our fillet strips, so little blocks of wood that we would place in between our balusters here at the top. What would be the length here given what our space ends up being? Okay, so let's have a look. So we have here our space between newel posts, and we have the width of our baluster at the narrowest point. So we have 1 3/8. So what we want to do is we want to add on a phantom baluster. So a fake baluster, we add that on to include that, and then we will subtract that off after. So we take 65 inches, and we're going to go plus 1 3/8, which will get 66 3/8. Okay. So now that is the distance we're going to use to calculate. So that we're going to include the phantom baluster in the overall length. So we have 66 3/8. And we're going to go divided by. Now what we want to do is we want to divide this by our approximate space plus a baluster. So basically our space plus the baluster total, and then we will get how many space balusters we need to get across this width. Okay, so the building code says that we can't have a space larger than 100 millimeters, which is 4 inches. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 4 inches and add it onto our baluster width. And what we're doing here is approximating. We're seeing how close can we get to 4 inches as the space between our balusters. And then we're going to actually narrow this down for our specific situation here. So we're going to go divided by 5 3/8 of an inch. Okay. So I'll show you what that looks like. We have 66.375 divided by 5.375. Okay, so that means we get 12.35 spaces. Okay, so 12.35 spaces is not what we can't have that, because 0.35 of a space, we're going to end up with, 2 inches or so as our final space. It's not balanced. So what we want to do is we want to divide this by an even number of spaces, or like a whole number of spaces, I should say. So no decimals. And then that way we're going to change our spacing. Our spacing won't be 4 inches, but it'll be a fraction. And that way every one of the spaces is the same. Okay, so we're going to round this up to 13, because if we divide it by 12, then our spaces would have to be larger than 4, which we can't do. So we take 66 3/8 of an inch, and we're going to divide it by 13. And when we do that, we get 5.01. So 66.375 divided by 13. 5.012. Okay. Or 10, sorry. I keep saying 01. 5, 7, blah, 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 blah. So what we're going to do now is we're going to subtract off our baluster width, and that will give us the actual space from between balusters. Okay, so we take off minus 1.375. And we get 3.73 inches. So just to confirm, we would say 3 3/4, but let's just see. We're going to go minus 3 and multiply that by 16 to get it into sixteenths. So it's 11.69 sixteenths. 11.69 sixteenths. So yeah, it's closer to 12 sixteenths. So if we had 12 sixteenths, that would reduce to 3/4 of an inch, which we suspected. Now, the challenge here is that, being off a little bit, we are going to have a rounding error here. So we're off by 0.31 of a 16th, 0.31 16ths times how many spaces? We have 13 times. So we have 4/16 which is a quarter of an inch. So by the time we get to the end of the line, we will be off by a quarter of an inch because of the rounding that we have. So it is good sometimes to just kind of cheat, an extra space here or here as you're laying these out to make up for the fact that you're going to end up with a full extra quarter here at the end, which isn't the end of the world. It actually still works out, right? We have 3 3/4 all the way, and the last space here would be 4 inches. But what you could do is work your way from both directions to try to hide some of those 4/16 in that overall width. Now, the last thing I said we would do is we want to figure out the length of the fillet strip. So we actually would be, cutting in blocks of wood to fit as spacers between the balusters, in the rebate on the underside of that railing. So what we're going to do is we take what we know about our stairs, and then we can apply our actual space between balusters, and then we can basically calculate the hypotenuse for our fillet strip. So what we could do is we know that our stairs, this particular set of stairs, has a rise of 7 1/4, a run of 10 1/4, and so if we calculate the hypotenuse of that, the unit bridge, we would get 12 9/16. So what we could do is use this formula. Hypotenuse over run is equal to hypotenuse over run. Now, in this case, we have the known hypotenuse and run, so we're going to go with 12.5625 over 10.25, and we're looking for the hypotenuse of our fillet strip here, the length from here to here, and our run is 3 3/4, 3.75. So we cross multiply and divide, and pull up the calculator here so we can see. We're going to go 3.75 times 12.5625, oops, divided by 10.25, sorry, equals. So the hypotenuse is 4.596 inches, which should be 9/16 minus 4 times that by 16ths. Yeah, it's closer to 10/16, so we should actually make that 4 5/8 of an inch. Again, because we're dealing with fractions, we're doing this extra rounding, and so we'll have to cheat the odd fillet strip up here by a 1/16 or a 1/2 16th to make sure that works out. Anyways, folks, I hope you found this helpful, and good luck calculating your balusters in the future. Take care.